Roll.
Becky Timchak,
Here.
Dorian Russell, Doug Doherty,
Here.
Maureen Wolf,
Here.
Michelle Graham, Mira Simantel, Paul Jarrell. Is he joining us virtually? And while we're waiting, Chris Riley and Ernest Stevens are both absent this evening.
And are excused. All right. Thank you. We will start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. Maureen, if you'd lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we have Paul now joining us. There you go. And Doreen, if you could do our land acknowledgement this evening.
Happy to. We want to acknowledge that we gather as the Northwest Regional ESD on the traditional lands of the Chinook, Clatskanie, Clatsop Nehalem, Kalapuya, Siletz, and Tillamook peoples, past and present, and honor with gratitude the land itself and the people who have stewarded it throughout the generations.
Board members, are there any revisions or additions to tonight's agenda?
Madam Chair, I actually would like to pull one of the consent agenda items. I don't know if I should do that now or wait. till the-
No.
Yes. So I would like to pull the approval of the RTI grant agreement as a separate discussion.
All right, is there a motion to do that, please?
So move to.
Okay.
I can second.
All right, it's been properly moved and seconded that we pull the ORTI from the consent agenda and add it as a separate action item. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? So moved. Any other changes or additions? All right, so with that, our first is the superintendent report. Superintendent?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. It's great to be out here in Banks, and I hope you got to enjoy a new Banks building and facade out there. It's been a long haul here in the school district and getting some construction going, and it does look really, really beautiful. So it is Teacher Appreciation Week right now, and I wanted to start tonight by making sure that we take the time here to just pause and give thanks to our licensed educators and what they mean to students. Quite simply, as I wrote here, our licensed educators, they change kids' lives, and they're committed to opening doors for kids, working with families, and showing up, and especially at the ESD, in some of the toughest spaces that there are in our education system. So I'm just so very proud to work with the Northwest Regional ESD licensed educators and also with educators across the region. We're talking about our teachers and our school nurses, our school psychologists, their coaches, improvement specialists. I wrote here that we have 36 at our ESD. We have 36 different specialty areas in our license group in total. And they are focused on making sure that our kids have access to a great education. So I'm just super thankful. What they do really matters. And we've been trying to celebrate them all week long. We've got like a leaf garden and a tree thing in the service center where people are putting nice messages up for our teachers. And I know people are celebrating them across our region. We also have other recognition and good news. So we have our communications program. So Kelsey Soltishak over there and her team, which includes Tracy Goldner and Megan. Mahoney and Megan. And they have been recognized by OSPRA, or the Oregon School Public Relations Association. They've earned top honors in 3 of 6 categories this year, and they're runner-up in 2 additional ones. And so kind of super award centric here and for their great work. And there's a number of things that they've been awarded for. So the How to Raise a Reader toolkit was recognized for branding. There's student-centered storytelling was recognized in the equity category. And the Backstage Pass video series, which is fun for me to do with them, is recognized for social media. And the recognition extends beyond OSPRA, our employee intranet, which we have, which Kelsey and her team has worked very hard to make a really viable tool for communication and improving relationship between our staff members and our colleagues, a viable intranet. Thought Farmer, which is the backbone of that system, got 53 submissions for this award, and we won it. So really amazing work from the communications team in improving our internal relationships and communication. I also want to acknowledge the broader leadership contributing to this work. We have CFO Jordan Ely was invited to present at a conference alongside Salem Kaiser Superintendent Andrea Castaneda on making school finance more accessible and transparent. And that went very well. That was at OSPRA as well. And finally, one of our dear colleagues over in the Hillsborough School District, Beth Grazer, was named Oregon School Communicator of the Year. And I know that she had a secret nomination from Kelsey Soltysiak over there, but I'm not sure Beth knows that, but now it's on the record. Beth she's amazing. She stands out for her authenticity, her transparency, her deep commitment to building trust within the Hillsborough community. And we just want to give a big shout out to her and her work. She's also an active contributor to our, Kelsey runs comms job alike throughout the region, and Beth is a huge asset to other school districts and to us here at the ESD and across the state. So big congratulations to her. Diving into some business here, the board is aware where we are in the local service plan process. After the board approves, goes out to all of our component school districts. We had unanimous approval this year from all of our school boards for the plan. And then we get out to talking to the administrative teams across the region about what our services are, et cetera, and helping people select services. So we are just past the deadline for selecting those services through our online system, basically a menu system that Stuart and his team run. And so each year by April 15th, people have to put their submissions in, and that's because we need some leeway, we need some runway, to do our hiring and to make any staffing adjustments that we need to. So that deadline is now here and gone. And pleased to report that in some areas, I was expecting that we would have a decrease in service selection this year. I think if you just look around what's happening in our school districts and our neighboring school districts with their budgets and with enrollment, our school districts are really struggling to keep their programs whole. And there are widespread reductions happening in staffing and in programs across, really across Oregon, but definitely here in our region. So our deadline is passed. There were some good news in the service selections. Our itinerant services, so our special ed folks who are out in school districts, that stayed fairly stable. Even a slight uptick in the need for things like occupational therapists and speech pathologists, school psychologists, and those types of specialty areas. On the flip side of the special education coin is our social emotional learning schools. And as I wrote about this in my report, there were quite a number of reductions of slots, purchase slots in some of our programs that are in the Beaverton area. And so the levels of slots that are being reduced will most definitely lead to not having as many classrooms. And so we are working on that scenario, and I'll get to that here at the end of my talk on the LSP. Another large program that we anticipated reductions for, of course, is our Northwest Outdoor Science School. As the board is painfully aware from repeated lectures from me, that the legislature cut 20% of that funding at the beginning of the biennium that we're in. The last short session, we were unsuccessful at getting any turnaround funding into that program to backfill it. We did our best the year before by spending quite a large amount of our district reserves to keep that program at the current level it was at, and we can no longer do that moving forward. And so I just wanted to call out that our outdoor school leadership team, which is led by Akari Jensen, really did a fantastic and thorough job engaging with various stakeholders in our outdoor school community, including our school districts, but also families and students. Did a number of listening sessions about what is important in the program, and a couple of things that I noted here that are absolutely critical, which we will not let go of, are the notions of student safety and access are the top priorities for that program, of course, and also getting kids out in nature. But those elements we will not compromise on. So next year, the program is going to operate at 4 sites instead of 5. And so one of our outdoor school contracting sites, which is Arowana out in Welch's, we will no longer be contracting with. I asked just yesterday, so what's going to happen to that camp? And we would expect that they are going to take a very, very large hit, that business. We take up over 20 weeks of time in the shoulder seasons, and I don't think they can quickly make that up. So big impact on the folks out there. For our kids, they will be mostly in 3-day programming, 3 days and 2 nights. We are going to continue to offer a 4-day, 3-night experience, but very, very few school districts are interested. But a number were so interested that they basically said, you have to offer that, else we're going to have to leave the program. So they're willing to pay more to have a 4-day experience than they will certainly get from the state in reimbursement. So it'll be a 3-day, 2-night option. And just so the board is aware, what that does mean for our staff is you have staff will come in on Sunday night. They'll do 2.5 days with kids, and that Wednesday will be a changeover day. And then a whole new set will come for that afternoon and evening, and then they'll go through Friday. It is a difficult schedule for staff, much more difficult than a 4-day program where you have a day off there to kind of get the camp ready and do all that kind of stuff. So it'll be high paced. So now that we have a much clearer understanding of district purchasing levels, our human resources team has already begun working with our department leaders to align staffing levels to our revenues. And we're hopeful that staff position reductions in all these areas that I'm talking about will be able to be managed through attrition as people resign or retire. However, layoffs may ultimately be necessary. And so Catherine and her team are working with our association partners to ensure that our affected staff members have the support that they need and deserve. Changing gears, and I'm going to watch to see if Becky, throws me a jab here, because she's on the state board, and they were asked to take on some things by the governor this last 2 weeks. So this month, or just a couple of weeks ago, Governor Kotek issued Executive Order 2606, which is focusing on preserving student instructional time alongside temporary rules unveiled at the State Board of Education. The order directs the ODE and the State Board to prioritize policies that prevent further reductions in instructional time for kids, and requires districts that have already reduced time to submit plans to restore it by 2027-28. It also limits the ability to grant waivers, so the Department of Ed to grant waivers that districts might apply for if they were going to be below the minimum instructional hours, except in emergencies. And it shifts, and it signals a shift towards defining instructional time more narrowly. So instead of bell to bell, really taking into account lunch, other kinds of breaks, parent conferences, and professional development in the rulemaking that is going to continue to move forward in the months ahead. So I do share this commitment for the governor to improve instructional or educational outcomes for kids. Oregon does have a very short instructional time for students compared to other states. And at the same time, we have a lot of needs in our education system right now. And research and my experience suggests that how instructional time is used is much more important, has a greater impact on student learning than simply increasing the same levels of instruction for more hours. So high impact strategies like I wrote about here, like focusing on helping our teachers with direct instruction and phonics instruction, increasing the rather than just increasing the number of hours and the other things that I wrote in here, would most certainly lead to higher student achievement than just adding time alone. And just so we're clear, we've been pushing for more instructional time for many, many years. And what it comes, the cost that it comes with is quite a lot of money. So when you add a day to people's jobs, there's a thing called PECPA, which is our labor laws, and you can't just add a day to somebody's employment. You need to pay for that employment. So adding just like adding 5 days across the state of Oregon is estimated to be a $250 million investment. I just put this out there, like things like response to intervention, these kinds of systems that we're going to talk about tonight, apparently, that we're going to talk about tonight. These are really high impact research-based strategies. Oregon spends about $3 million a year on its statewide response to intervention program. So $3 million versus a $250 million investment in instructional time. Like we can make better decisions than this as a state. And I submitted those reflections and linked the letter to the state board that Becky was on the receiving end. Here in the board report, was a little bit of it was picked up in OPB, but instructional time is going to be a conversation. It's going to be a conversation for the next session. And I do think people should be concerned about the number of hours students get here in Oregon versus Washington and California. But Washington and California spend a lot more on their education systems. And so we also have to be realistic about what it's going to take. A few more items for me, and then I will stop. We are involved in helping the state make progress on SB 141, which is our big new accountability system here in the state of Oregon. Statewide performance target rules were just read at the State Board of Education. A special meeting was added at the end of this month to adopt those targets, which was sooner than expected. And these statewide targets set the kind of the parameters and the floor, so to speak, for school districts then to set their performance targets so that the state is on track to meet them. So each district will work with ODE to set these growth targets, and the idea is that if everybody hits them, we're going to hit these statewide targets that the state just adopted. And our team is going to rally around our districts and help them with that. So Megan Logan and Brian Bain and our assessment squad are going to be doing quite a lot of work with our school districts to help prepare them. Also, as I spoke about last time, ESDs were tapped to help the state with procurement for the 4 interim assessments that are now required in this law. This was an interesting body of work. The state, unfortunately, didn't get statewide pricing when they selected these. So we lost a lot of leverage in our ability to bring down the prices with these vendors because they already knew that they had the contracts with the state. So it was a little bit backwards. Having said that, I am really proud of the work that RESD did, and especially Brian Bain, but also Megan Logan and Jordan Ely, because we were a little bit more aggressive, as you might imagine, with me here as the superintendent, with negotiating than I believe the other folks were. Our charge was just to get a statewide price and move on, but we were really focused on making sure that small districts got the same deal as big districts, and we were able to achieve that. because of the work of our team. So every district, no matter the size in the state of Oregon, can lock onto our consortium that we established. And a big kudos to Portland Public Schools, because they did not need to jump into our consortium. They already had the numbers, but they agreed to be in our consortium, which automatically gave us the volume so that we can provide this lower cost districts, which we're really proud of. And lastly on this, Megan and Ryan Blasquez are putting together, and Brian are putting together a 4-part learning series to help K-8 principals improve the culture of assessment in their buildings and really lean into using these interim assessments for instructional improvement and celebration in their schools. And I talked about this at a statewide meeting today, and all these districts like Ben LaPine were like, can we come to your guys' like 4-part series and that kind of thing? So who knows, for a price, anything's possible. God, I did write a lot. So we have a Regional Teacher of the Year panelist coming up. Kelsey does a ton of work on this every year. And I won't read a whole bunch of this, although Nahid Brown is here, and she is a former Regional Teacher of the Year when she was in Tiger Tualatin, and works, of course, as our program administrator. But we do have quite the blue ribbon panel here with lots of cool elected people and movers and shakers like Lisa Bosatina, who's a parent leader on our PAC, and mayors and et cetera. And so I'm really proud of the work that Kelsey's doing to elevate the teaching profession and get folks who are outside and inside our system engaged in our work. Election night is, of course, around the corner. It is an interesting time. We have a number of really intense primaries, even for longstanding and sitting legislators. So if you're interested, there's a spreadsheet that Jenna Jones put together to help you kind of see what's going on in terms of the election. And then, of course, when it's done, we will let the board know any specific impacts in our region. And lastly, good news at the Antioch building, the art exhibit, the installation for the name, it was finally installed in the front, and it's got a really cool display, and it tells the naming story of Antioch. It has some tactile elements and a bilingual feature that helps people pronounce the recording and understand what it means. So it's really cool to see that building continue to come alive. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Board members have any questions for the superintendent? And his very inclusive report there.
Sorry.
Was a lot to cover. Any questions? All right. We will move on to the next order of business, and one of our favorites, recognition and good news. I loved when I read about this and saw this, but I just love saying it. Go, baby, go.
All right, good evening, Chair Timchuk and members of the board. I'm gonna keep my intro really brief because I wanna maximize the time they get to show their really cool toys. Go Baby Go, Heather Higashi, Bethany Sloan are both here from Go Baby Go, which creates independent mobility for children in our EIECSE program and beyond, I believe, but I'll let them do the talking. This mic helps the virtual folks here, so you can sit or you might need to move around.
Yeah, well, this is great. Well, hi. Yes, I'm Bethany Sloan. I'm a physical therapist up at OHSU. So I work in the Child Development and Rehabilitation Center up there. And I am the director of Go Baby Go Oregon. I've been doing this from 2014 is when Go Baby Go started. And Northwest Regional employees have been a part of it since its inception. So I feel like Northwest Regional has been very integrated into the program and honestly has continued to grow the program because of their involvement, or y'all's involvement, I guess. But so what Go Baby Go is we are a nonprofit organization. We're completely donation-based, volunteer-based. We have all sorts of members as a part of our organization. So it's interdisciplinary of all like disciplines. So we have physical therapists, occupational therapists, speech language pathologists, family members, and engineers that sit on our committee. That helps to figure out what we want to do and make sure that Go Baby Go Go is inclusive. So our main things that we now have 3 programs. We started with one, which were the ride-on toy cars, and this is what Go Baby Go is known for. It's actually like a national program and even an international program, and we are just the Oregon branch of it. But we started with the modified ride-on cars, where what Go Baby Go does is we try to take like commercial off-the-shelf products and adapt them for kids with disabilities to be inclusive, accessible for them, but really importantly, affordable, which makes them more accessible. So we take ride-on toy cars that you can get at any toy store and adapt them electrically by rewiring them and putting this adaptive switch on the steering wheel that's highly sensitive, so kids can access the movement rather than it being just a small button or a foot pedal. And then we add in the postural support so that a child that may need help sitting up or with head control or even tilted back can still enjoy like a toy that they can get outside and play with their friends and move about their environment. And then over the past few years, I don't know, few years, probably like the decade, we started doing the adapted toys where we kind of are doing the same thing as we are adapting them to put in the adapted port into the back where the switch plugs in. So again, a child can access the toy however they want to and whatever is the best way for them. So it's a highly sensitive button that we can put it anywhere. So they don't have to use the buttons that are on the toy. They can access it however they want and access play. And then the book program, we started that. That's probably our newest program over the past like 5 years or 6 years or so, where we take board books and we add sensory materials to them for kids to be able to like reach out and engage with the book and participate in shared reading, which is so important for early literacy skills and communication. So I'll let you share a little bit more.
I'm Heather Higashi. I'm a physical therapist. I've been with the ESD for the most part since 2019, PT in early learning at Onquak and at Beck. And I'm part of the Go Baby Go committee since 2021. So a lot of us are a part of the Go Baby Go committee, and we've been bringing these elements into how we provide services for kids. And we've been doing all county car builds in 2023. We did toy and book builds in 2023. And then we do the play days like you've seen since 2023. That one's at Beck. We now go to Hidden Creek and do them indoors. But the organization has been really great in supporting the things that we do every day with kids and supporting participation in their daily routines. And then also members and staff from the ESD have been supporting Go Baby Go in some of the activities that we do. In December, we're actually able to host a really big event that Go Baby Go holds at Onquak. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I think the partnership has been really great in just supporting children and families with high medical complexity.
Does the board have any questions?
Yeah, any questions? Go ahead.
I won't steal your thunder, Chair, because I think it's just a comment. I mean, it's just, I mean, this is what recognition and good news is, but this is so exciting and it's so joyful and just elevating the opportunities for young children. And I just think it's amazing. So thank you for sharing. So, and I want to see the books. Thank you.
For kids who are not able to flip the pages or who might have vision differences, they're able to flip it because we put page flippers or make the sensory experiences more vibrant. Yeah.
Michelle, did you have a question?
Yes. How many kids every month do you deal with? About, don't.
I mean, I would say so for our Adapt to Give workshop event that we're hosting at Onquak this year, we adapt over 150 toys just at that one event. And they are all signed up for. We have had to keep increasing it every year because we'll increase it and then they all get handed out. And so, yeah, it started at 25. Like, I think this is our 7th year doing it, and now we're up to 150. And so we adapt 150 toys, and we deliver them out to kids for the holidays. And we
Wonderful.
serve all of Oregon and Northwest Washington too. So, yeah.
And that was going to be more my question of what comes first. Do parents bring these to you and you show them how to make them adapt, or are you adapting them and then giving out to the children that are at Beck or wherever?
Both.
Both,
Yeah,
okay.
oftentimes it's us providing the books and toys and cards, but we also have hosted events where families join virtually even, and then adapt the book that they want for their kid.
And then can you explain the relationship? You explained that you're you're a nonprofit, a 501c3 that does work with the ESD. So do we as an ESD pay, or do we have any kind of agreement of any sort, or how are you funded on the 501c3 part?
Yeah, so if we've done events with Northwest Regional, sometimes you all have paid for like supplies for that event, especially if you're keeping the supplies. So adapting the toys at the event, and then those toys will remain at Northwest Regional. Things like that. We've received like a donation, more like an in-kind, but we are funded through the 501c3 for like numerous ways. So we're actually under the OHSU Foundation. We're like a small program under the OHSU Foundation, so we get a lot of support just through that foundation itself. But then we get funds from Macy's. We do like the Macy's play days every summer, which is kind of where our play days started. And then Northwest Regional started doing their own because so many of those kids were going to like Washington Square Mall, but they have like a community grant. So a lot of community grants, small program grants like that we'll apply for. Yeah, other clinics and different organizations also reach out to us to do volunteer events. So like we're doing one at Nike in the next few weeks, and their employees come and adapt equipment for us. And then we get a donation from them, and they pay for all of the equipment, and then we give them out to kids. So we do a lot of, like clinic, therapy clinic, or sometimes like employee specific events for like a volunteer like team building event. Yeah.
I was also just thinking about our foundation, if there was something that.
Yeah, actually, some of our therapists have applied for the grants, like the foundation grants, and have received them, and then have adapted books and battery and switches, actually, bought switches with those funds. Yeah.
Any other questions? Well, we really appreciate you being here this evening, and if everybody'd like to get up so we can take a picture with Paul up on the screen there.
Maybe if everyone can grab a toy.
Yeah, grab a something.
Show off your toy.
Put this someone around. Yes. Thank you for having us.
Yes, I'm very glad. Make sure I follow up about that. Okay. Ready? 1, 2, 3. I'll take a couple more. 1, 2, 3. Oh, one more. Okay. All right.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It is pretty fun.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thanks for having us. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Next order of business, do we have any public comment?
Chair Timchak, we do not.
Thank you very much. Okay, consent agenda.
Any questions on consent agenda? I move that we approve thank you. I move that we approve the consent agenda for this month in May.
Russell, second.
All right, it's been properly moved and seconded that the board approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, reports and discussions. First order of business. Oregon accountability update. Megan, Ryan, front and center.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Board of Directors. Thank you so much for having Director Blasquez and I here tonight. We're excited to talk accountability, Senate Bill 141. I say that jokingly because I do feel like sometimes when we get in the room with superintendents, like not that again, but we're actually really excited about some of the stuff. And I do think there's an opportunity here. There's some tension points that we're going to highlight, but I also think there's a lot of opportunity in the work. So we're going to talk about kind of a general timeline of how some of the stuff's rolling out. We're going to talk about some key areas of the Senate bill, some kind of most current progress and informational updates to date. Of course, this stuff, we turned in the presentation and then it changed and then we had to return in the presentation. So, it may have even changed since then, but we're trying to stay as up to speed as we can. And then some areas of opportunity and some supports that we've been co-designing with districts. So this is straight from an ODE slide, but it kind of gives you a high-level overview of how the accountability framework will roll out. Interim assessments, as you know from all the updates with Dan, were just adopted. They're currently reviewing Division 22 and 24 standards. And then the two big things for next year are implementing interim assessments. And then there's going to be a piloting of a unified consolidated application. I will talk more about what that is in one of the other slides. So those are kind of the two big buckets of work for next year. And then the other notable dates are, as we look at the performance growth targets, directed coaching potentially starts in the school year 28-29, and then intensive coaching in 29-30. We'll talk a little bit more about each of those, but that's kind of how this will roll. So these are the 5 key work streams that ODE has outlined around SB 141. So they are bucketing their work into these 5 categories. We're going to talk about the first 4 today. We're not going to talk about ODE's internal stuff, but that is their 5th workflow.
Yeah, and so these are the 4 that will impact closest to us at the ESD. And you can see that the items in each of the quadrants are highlighted. Those are areas that we're either supporting currently or will support as we move down the road here with the Senate bill. And there will be slides for each of these things. And this is the area that Superintendent Goldman touched on it a little, the goal setting and metric setting aligned with the accountability. This has the most angst for our partners, what it's going to look like, how this directed coaching and or intensive coaching could lead to directed funding. There's still a lot of question marks, and like Dr. Logan referenced, we just met with ODE the other day, and really their answer for a lot of things is that these conversations will continue to be nuanced. And so we just are trying to position ourselves to understand the best we can as we go. What we do know is there will be targets normed around baseline data that's been established. We'll show you that in the next slide. And there will be targets established in districts for gap closing with historically underserved populations. And adequate progress is going to be a measurement, but again, we don't know exactly what that's going to be yet. And as Dr. Logan just referenced, there will be directed coaching for districts that do not meet progress goals for 2 years in a row. And directed coaching also is a little undefined at this time. And then a more significant coaching option is intensive, and that will be if the school district was, required to implement directed coaching, no progress was being made, or they're missing targets in 2 or more areas, which might signify like a system problem. See you nodding, and yes, okay. So That's just a whole lot of words, and we don't really have clarity around some of this yet, I think is probably the takeaway of this slide. And we'll just give you a moment to look at not only the current baseline data that was established, this is board adopted now, so this is what we're working from, and then these ambitious 4, 8, and 12-year targets.
Just a little collaboration over here, you know? So basically, the next step from those statewide targets is then there's similar district targets that are going to be developed, and then district targets are developed from there. So I'm not going to go into the mathematics behind how the similar districts were created. There was a whole mathematical model behind it, but you can see they have these 6 different groups, names for those, and districts have been grouped into those. And basically then what'll happen is all of those target the different metrics on the left, those will be set for each of these different similar groups. And then from there, districts will set their targets with the goal of if the districts move the clusters, and the clusters will move the state. Thinking there. And the other thing to note is that with the new accountability bill, more entities have moved into being part of the accountability system. So YSEPs, JDEPs, LTCTs, Oregon School of the Deaf, ESDs serving students in special schools are all entities that previously were not included in the accountability work. So an example of this here is Levi Anderson, which we all know and love, is one of our LTCT programs. And so they now have, they'll be part of the accountability work. They also are currently working on a modified integrated programs application for integrated programs funding, because they've been folded into that, which doesn't end up being a huge amount of money, but is, because they're coming into the accountability system, they're also getting some additional funding to go to fund that work from the Student Success Act. Charter schools are also, yes, charter schools were involved in the last round. So originally it was just districts, and then the last round of applications, they added in charters, and now these are the newest additions. And so, you know, we just wanted to highlight, as Ryan said, there's some things we know about the performance targets, right? And there's also some things that we have some concerns about, and then also just need some more clarity around, and wanted to kind of highlight those for you all so you could understand the landscape a little bit more. So the first one is just that using year-to-year comparisons can sometimes be problematic, right? And that's kind of in 2 ways. One is the small district, I just call it small district math, right? Like in a small district, one kid can count for like 10%. So if you're doing a year-by-year analysis in a small district for only 3rd grade for reading, that can swing really fast, versus either if you used a K-5 reading scores and progress, or if you did 3rd grade over a 3-year period average, like a 3-year average. Right now, it is pretty much set on 3rd grade and year over year, and we're being told there'll be nuance in how that's looked at. So that's one thing to consider. The other one is districts could, like, although they might be on trajectory long-term to hit their target, they could dip during a single year. So again, looking at a year by year, that can be problematic as well. And the other thing we just wanted to highlight was, especially with, well, there's a couple of pieces the key areas we think more clarity is needed in. The new local metrics, many have never been calculated before. So that's a little bit concerning. We don't necessarily have baseline data for those because they haven't been set before. So that's an issue. Also, for example, in those similar districts, if you're going to set a target for similar districts around interim assessments, but there's 4 different tests and we're not sure how those tests are going to be measured, that also is something that's unclear right now. Similarly, like even for an individual district with an interim assessment, like let's say for the MAP assessment, are we measuring the percentage of students who are meeting their growth targets? Are we measuring the percentage of students who are on grade level? There's some different ways to measure things that haven't really been cleared up yet. The one thing that we're hopeful about under this, we had this as a question, and then after a meeting we had last week, we're hearing it's a likely yes, but a lot of districts are concerned because when they initially set their targets, there wasn't accountability around them. And some people set them like very aspirational, and then accountability came in with that. And there's some districts where Brian has said it's like mathematically impossible for them to reach their target, and now there's accountability with it. We've been hearing it's a very likely yes that they will get to reset their targets this round, which is very encouraging. And this one's still me. Yes. Okay. So the other thing that we kind of highlighted under this same area workflow for Oregon Department of Education is they are really working on building out what they're calling a continuum of supports. And I mean, yeah, I'm excited about it because I got asked to be on the co-design team, so I'm getting to help with it. So I'm getting to try and influence it, which is great. But basically what it is it's the range of proactive to directive supports that ODE will provide to a district. So you start on the left with like technical assistance. That's something we already do for like SSA, where we're helping people get their applications in. Professional development, ODE does some of this. We also do some of this, right? Through our instructional services shop, our early literacy services would fall into that category. Those middle two buckets are opt-in customized coaching and then directed coaching, which we'll talk a little bit more about on another slide, because that's where a program they're calling customized coaching and professional learning falls, which I do think is an important thing we're going to highlight a little more for you all. And as I said, then as you get to that right-hand side, directive coaching, intensive and directed funding, you're getting more towards the state interventions because you're not seeing improvement side. If you go to the next slide, I think I highlighted, so I'm serving on a co-design team with ODE and OAESD around this. Currently, our work has just been finding common definitions for all the things first. Our next step that we're going to work on is actually fleshing out like what the continuum looks like and where ESDs fit into those different pieces of the continuum.
Yeah, and like Dr. Logan referenced, part of that continuum of supports are these CCPLs, customized coaching and professional learning services. As you might imagine, 197 school districts, 7 metrics with ambitious targets, and this kind of tiered support model where after a couple of years of not making progress, coaching becomes in play. They might need a lot of coaching. And so there's the building of some vendor lists. In these 7 areas, there was a competitive process for application. RFP came out to vendors, and ESDs kind of late in the game were informed that we could apply for to be on this vendor list in these 7 areas. This was a little confounding to us because this is work that we already do. We are already, pretty intimately involved in improvement efforts across our region. And so this might complicate things as we go. But we were approved for 4 of the 7 areas after a little bit of runaround. And so now comes the time where we're kind of brainstorming and positioning ourselves to be able to actually fulfill the role of a vendor potentially across the state as the needs come up through this Accountability Act. So the way this will work is a district would be identified as needing directed or intensive coaching. They would go and put out on Oregon buys, what's the term?
Well, they create basically districts, which it could be directed, although right now it's not. So right now districts can just opt into this. So any district can say, I want additional coaching. And if they can demonstrate an area of need, they'll meet with ODE and they'll create an opportunity. And then vendors will be able to bid on that opportunity to provide 1 year of intensive support to that district that will be paid for by the state out of a bucket of like $10.5 million. And so I think like our concern, the reason why we wanted to get in the game, right, is like we're already doing this work with our districts. And so this can't replace the work we're already doing, but it does give us the potential to go deeper and have more capacity to support people more. But there's a lot of like gray areas in all of this, and we're just kind of getting into it. But I think the important thing to understand is that like this districts have the option to say they need additional support and go get it from private contractors, which I think creates issues for us.
And And just to give an idea of like what this vendor list is starting to shape into is like for early literacy, I think there's 15 different vendors. And that's obviously a need of a lot of our region's teams. And so how might they be thinking about this, or how might they misunderstand some of these resources and how they access those and where that lines up with what we're doing for and with them.
You guys, Madam Chair, can I ask you a quick question before the slide switches? Lots of questions, but I'll stay on task. As I look at that list and I see, synergy with ESDs, I mean, I see it with a lot of them, but like student success systems. So like a year later, they like, oh, you guys should be on this list. So we're going to open up the vendor list. I mean, so what's the length of, quote, the vendor list that maybe then is reevaluated to see what's the ROI on these vendors, right? And have that internal assessment.
They don't have a current number of years. They have said they will reopen them. It was already established ESDs weren't allowed to apply the first time around. They did reopen them, allowing ESDs to apply to these 7. There's actually more. There's a list of 15 total. They said they will open it again. I know they're adding math next year to align with the accountability edition of math. So I assume at least next year it will open up. It will open up again. To be transparent, we applied to every single one. We were accepted to 4. Well, we were originally accepted to 2. We were eventually accepted to 4. But yeah, so we did apply to the other 3 that you see, because we do have services that align to those, not as much adolescent literacy, but student success systems and mental health and wellness we do have, but we did not meet the criteria to be approved.
Probably a lot of conversation.
So, Madam Chair, may I?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is I just want to point out to the board the systems problems here. So you have 19 ESDs in the state who are funded through the Student Success Act and other measures like local service plans to provide these kind of services to school districts. This essentially creates a different system with dozens and dozens of vendors that school districts might get paired with by ODE that are outside of, our touch. One of my biggest questions, and has been and will continue to be, while you're taking money to build out an individual vendor year by year support system, like that money could be invested into the system that exists, which has been starved, and to hold ESDs more accountable, to be quite frank, for improving our services and delivering these services. I would suspect what we're going to see here is quite a lot of confusion.
Yeah.
And it is, I was on the phone today with one of our large district superintendents talking about this, and they don't even know that this system is there yet, right? Because nobody's in trouble yet in the system. And when I let him know that there's millions of dollars that are being spent, that he can go and access like some other early literacy, professional developer out of, who knows, Iowa somewhere. His first reaction was like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard, and you have to slow down, right? So this is and I guess I'm just sharing this with the board because there's going to be a lot of sense making that is going to need to occur between now and when school districts get assigned coaching support. I do think there's a lot of opportunity for us to shape the system, and I'm pleased that Megan and Ryan are both highly involved in trying to shape the system. And I also think there's going to be a role for boards in some level of work group kind of stuff to make sure that we're not causing system confusion and increasing system confusion.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what we hope the takeaway would be from this. And we see it already on a smaller scale with the Oregon RTI grant project team, which is state funded and charged to do a handful of things. There's comprehensive state literacy development grants where they serve as the coach. And there's EIIS system, all these things. And that's exactly right, that it's confusing. And I worry that folks in our region would opt out of our supports for somebody in Iowa or whatever. But I do think they could just be confused and make decisions based on the information they think they're interpreting the right way.
One of the other areas that ODE is focused on through SB 141 is basically streamlining, removing burden and streamlining redundancies. And some of this work started with the integrated programs, which I talked to you guys a lot about. And there's like that slide with like these 9 programs, and we do the technical assistance for doing the community engagement, the needs assessment, and submitting the combined plan for all of those programs, which used to be separate in one. So what they're now doing is they're trying to pilot a unified application, which would replace that. Currently, it has, I think, 19 different programs instead of like the 7 included in it. There's 34 districts piloting this. Hillsborough and Vernonia are both in the pilot. And the goal is to reduce the total number of questions, especially the open-ended questions that districts are having to answer. So I think that's a really good goal. I think the concern we have is that ESDs have not been at the table with a lot of this work. And so it's been really hard because we are providing the technical assistance. And so there's going to be a large impact to the work that we do. And we don't really know how it's changing. I do now because we were able, Vernonia asked for our assistance, asked for our assistance. And so I was able to see what they are working on. And it is a completely different application than what we have supported in the last 3 rounds of the integrated guidance integrated programs. And so that'll just support, you know, how we're supporting districts with their application process. And so I just think something to highlight that's going to be a big change for us.
Yeah, and like has been referenced several times here, there's 4 interim assessments adopted, and these tools are going to be used to progress monitor and goals set for 3rd grade reading and 8th grade math. And so all districts had to adopt one of them, and as Superintendent Goldman shared, Dr. Logan and the team made sure that we could have a statewide price for everybody. And as was referenced earlier as well, we'll be leading kind of a workshop series with administrators from across the region, helping them think about hopefully these assessments, not just in terms of compliance, but as really helpful tools in order to move student data. And we'll focus on things like kind of understanding the assessment ecosystem, data literacy, how to think about core review and action planning in their local context. And other things, we haven't really put it all together yet.
Getting kids excited about
Yes,
growing.
some of the logistics around testing. Yeah, for sure.
I think that's what we have for now. It may change soon. We'll keep you updated. Any questions?
Board have any questions? Doug?
There is a lot to this that I have a lot of questions about, but I guess my only question that I'll focus on right now is to Dan. Did the superintendents know about this?
Superintendents know about this, but I would say superintendents were certainly, as a group, right, like COSA, which is our main advocacy group, as a group was engaged before this. All the recommendations from that group were scrapped, and they started over with a different technical assistance group. They meaning the state, and we are really not at the table in a meaningful way. We have representation on some advisory groups, but things seem fairly baked by the time they hit those groups. And it's fast moving too. To the department's credit, I don't think this is the timeline that they would choose to be on. So things are moving very, very quickly, and it is extremely detailed work. And I would say what's most frustrating for the people I talk to, like the conversation I had today that I was referencing, it doesn't seem like the Department of Ed knows about all these components and how they fit together. And so when you talk to one side, they don't understand this coaching and professional learning system and that there's this vendor system, but they're working with us on literacy, right? And it's like, somebody might be recommending a different literacy provider for this district. So there's a lot of confusion in the system. And I do think that the timeline is our enemy here.
Thank you.
I'll keep it to one question because I also have many. I'm really concerned that ESDs weren't firstly and promptly named as vendors on this list, and that dollars that would benefit public institutions are going to go to private, if not out-of-state private corporations. Do we have any idea of who may have lobbied for it to be this way? Are there any, like, this does not strike me as informed by community or child-centered? Like, what are the forces that are driving the structure that we're now going to be beholden to implementing at our own expense?
Let Dan take that one.
Since we're on the record, I would say there are many strong forces I don't want to, a lot of it is, I don't know, I haven't been in the room directly. What I would say is that there are some very strong advocacy groups right now that obviously have the governor's ear. And they are making impacts on getting money into CBOs and outside of the public ed system. And I do think that there is a sense at the leadership level that school districts have not been able to turn the corner for kids and that they need a jolt from the outside.
I would just add that this isn't like outside the box necessarily either. I mean, there's a lot of outsourcing of professional development and high dosage tutoring providers and literacy and through the EIIS improvement system. It's these vendor lists. So I think a little bit it's kind of business as usual, but this is obviously growing.
It's not uncommon in other state accountability systems for them to look like this. These are not new ideas. So for instance, in Texas, they run massive vendor lists. The ESDs that we just had somebody come visit us, he doesn't have very many staff. He has vendor relationships and hooks them up with school districts. So it's not a new concept. And oftentimes, even in other states, you will see vendors written into statute, which you don't often see here. Like these 4 assessment vendors written into statute, in other states would be written into statute. Here they're written into rule. So this is not uncommon. It's very new for Oregon.
I won't ask any more questions. I'll just suggest to your point, Dan, that if you starve a public institution and then blame it for not meeting expectations, it might be a resource issue.
And I'm just going to, go on the record too, because Dan keeps referring to being on the Board of Education, and I am an advisor. I do not have a vote. But I have been through every part of this. And, your presentation tonight, reading through the board book, it just gets me worked up all over again. And I have never, ever, in all my years through the Student Investment Act, through ESSA, all these different things that I have never, ever been a part of something that you are literally coming up with these concepts while you are flying the plane. And there are so many unknowns. And I kept getting the advice, how in the world can this Board of Education pass rules that they don't even know how they're going to be implemented or cost or who owns it? And the fact that we would do something this big without even doing an audit of, do we have the right people at the Department of Education who can even do this work? Or what could ESDs help? This is all paid for by the taxpayer. This is not whatever you even take on with these outside vendors. It's still paid for by tax dollars. And I mean, to even come up with something that you would have 4 assessments and that we're all going to get the same information, how is that any different than how we've done it before? Of what we're going to be looking at, this just to me, and all I asked when I was at this is to just a timeout, not that it doesn't need to be done, but just a timeout for us to gather, and that was not even an option. So I think that the way that we are going about trying to get better outcomes for our children with the best of intentions, I do not think that's what they are going to accomplish here, especially when it does not come up with alignment of dollars. We need to, as a board, if we feel differently in whatever way the ESD, we need to keep voicing our board. And in the meantime, I am very grateful that we have such a competent staff that are going to try to be at the table. And I hope you are much more successful being at the table than I was being at the table, because I could not seem to get people to pay attention. So your credentials and your background and your expertise will probably go a lot further in this work that we have to do. So this will be something that we will be, because obviously the ESD will be a part of this, and we will have a role. But thank you for the great presentation. And we will move on now to early intervention program report. Ricky, welcome. We are so happy to have you.
Thank you.
And presenting. So we are a friendly group. You got me just on a bad, but I am obviously.
I think this was actually planned perfectly. You got to hear about the babies and toddlers, then we got to hear about that, and now we get to hear more about babies and toddlers.
But welcome. We're welcome. We're glad to have you here.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. So I'm Ricky Schley. I'm a speech language pathologist by training, but I currently work as the early intervention coordinator. So I oversee the 0 to 3 program, mostly in Washington County, but I do offer support to Columbia, Clatsop, and Tillamook. So I'm going to talk a little bit more, just an overview of what EI is. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the work we've done to align the 4-county region, and then also some really exciting things that are coming up next year. So early intervention is usually pretty far outside of most K-12 wheelhouses, but we provide 0 to 3 services for infants and toddlers with disabilities, or infants and toddlers who are at risk of disability. Our service is primarily done in natural environments. That's both state and federally mandated. So that's family homes, and we utilize a parent coaching model. So rather than just come in, provide that direct support to these babies, whether it's speech, occupational therapy, physical therapy, or global development, we work alongside their caregivers to empower, to coach, to increase their capacity and skill so that they are able to support their kids in naturally occurring routines. So we serve over 670 kids here at Northwest Regional that are in that 0 to 3 age range. We provide services in their homes, in childcares, and also just anywhere kids can be seen, or kids exist. So playgrounds, libraries, story times, and then also at our site through just social engagement opportunities. We have a strong desire to support kids where they are and support families where they are. And one of the newer things that we've done to do that is to offer these kind of informal social play groups. So many families do not feel comfortable leaving their home. They don't have the confidence to safely take their kids to the park. So by being able to come to our buildings, be in a safe space, we get to normalize disability, we get to normalize that experience. And our caregivers have really, really appreciated it. And they've been able to build relationships with other families who are going through very similar things. And those relationships have really maintained over time. So that's been really exciting. So as I mentioned, most of our services are provided in the home. I talked a little bit about the caregiver coaching model. We've used that for far longer than I've been a provider here. So I've worked here for 15 years, and that has been the evidence-based mode of service delivery for quite some time. So we have incredibly competent, capable staff who do this very important work. We have a multidisciplinary team. It's about 50 people across the 4-county region who do some sort of EI service. It's specialized teachers, it's SLPs, physical therapists, occupational therapists, and then we also get support from autism specialists, deaf and hard of hearing specialists, vision specialists, and school psychs. And one of the best things that we get to do is to support family outcomes. So we get to find out what's critical to the family. We do that developmental monitoring, but we also get to intervene where it matters the most. So this year, we have focused a lot on aligning practices. Historically, because we are a very diverse region across a very large geographic area, that support has been really differentiated. So Washington County had a great deal of really specific early intervention support. Clatsop, Columbia, and Tillamook didn't have quite as much access. So this year in particular, we've really focused on cohort-style learning, sharing those learning experiences so that we do have more aligned practices in Clatsop, Columbia, and Tillamook, and that we can still, each of those regions do need something unique and diverse, but trying to offer that greater consistency. So the things that we focused on in those, and those are done in person in those locations, right? So trying to provide that consistent, high quality support. But we've had several this year. So the first one focused on high impact coaching strategies. There's a lot of science behind the coaching model, how that should be done in early childhood settings. We don't come in as experts. That's not how you do it. You come in and really value the expertise of each parent, of each caregiver, and use that to build that relationship and build that skill. We've also focused on that transition. So we're with babies and toddlers until they turn 3, and then they enter special education if they continue to qualify. So helping guide staff, all of those best practices, procedural, the technical side of moving kids from that 0 to 3 to that 3 to 5 program. Really focusing too on the support we give families. It's a really big difference moving from this home-based EI service, developmental support, to special education. And it's something I've been through as a parent. And I remember it was about 2 or 3 months later when I was like, oh, this feels really different. So we do a lot to support them kind of preemptively. And then we've also focused on navigating hard. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I just want to jump back for a second, and I'll be fast. I'm really curious, coaching strategies for early intervention. Can you give an example that happens, that you experience a lot with families, that may be unique with children that are also learning, maybe, I don't know, differently or adding? And I'm just curious, really interested in maybe something that might be different.
Absolutely. So the strategies I was focusing on in these kind of cohort style learning were actually not about strategies you use with the family. It's the structure and the coaching strategies. So it's not a tool you would teach a family. It's a tool for presenting information to a family. So it's our coaching skills. But to the question you're asking is like, what kind of coaching strategies might we use? There are about 1 million, and they're really highly individualized. But something like from a communication standpoint, something like repeat and add. That's one of my favorites. So kids who are late talkers, who aren't saying a lot of parents will want to ask questions. What is that? What color is it? Where did it go? And instead we're offering, kid points, and we might say, blue or ball. They say ball, we say big ball. So that would be a strategy that we would coach a family on. Yeah, we do specific developmental skill coaching, but we also do routine coaching. So thinking about, hey, my kid will not let me get his hair wet. well, we have to wash hair, at least to some degree. And so kind of guiding a family through desensitizing that experience to making it more fun. So all kinds of things that really can be hugely impactful in a kid's day, in a family's life. Yeah. So the one of the last ones we did was around navigating hard conversations. So we are often the first line of defense when families get a hard diagnosis from their pediatrician. We're there when they get home from the NICU. We're there when their child was diagnosed with autism or before their child was diagnosed with autism, and they're wondering, is that the next step? So those take a lot of skill, a lot of care, and our providers already have a lot of these skills, but just giving support in order to do those, to feel more confident having those, because they do happen very, very frequently. So one other thing that's been really exciting this year is our EI program meetings. So historically, we had county-wide team meetings, and we have changed those into agency-wide early intervention professional learning. So that's all 4 counties coming together, sharing space, sharing conversation. We do, kind of that cross-team collaboration time where we have some sort of discussion. Folks can get to know each other a little bit better. And talk about the uniqueness of their locations, but also build that connection and similar feel. And within that, have focused on high impact professional development. So sleep strategies for infants and toddlers. We had one coming up is on the NICU transition. So a NICU therapist is coming to talk about what NICU therapy is like. And we'll have parents come and talk about that transition from the NICU home. And then we had one on just exploring community resources. They all came and talked about how we can support families and making sure they have access to different things in the community. And moving forward, so this is something I'm very excited about. This next year, our big professional development will be on a early relational health intervention called Cards for Connection. So Dr. Amy King is a local psychologist who specializes in trauma and early relational health, and she created a curriculum called Cards for Connection, and they're brief interventions that once you're trained, anyone can provide, and they build early relational health. They build that connection between a parent or a caregiver and a child. And so there's just a ton of research. You've all heard of ACEs. How do we counteract ACEs? We build relationships, and we build relationships early. So this will be, it's a 2-year certification program. All early intervention staff, anyone who supervises early intervention will attend. Our school psychologists will attend, and likely our social workers will attend as well. And these interventions are already really aligned with what we're doing. So this will enhance the work rather than feel like just something else. So yeah, I'm really excited. There's a lot of research that she's done around the reduction of feeling of burnout in staff, and this training supports that as well. So very excited about that. And to leave you with a little final thought, and this cute little guy in his compression vest, strong relationships drive strong outcomes. We already have incredibly capable, amazing people that do amazing work every single day, and this is another tool to support that. Build resiliency in kids, build resiliency in families, which is gonna make third grade reading a whole lot easier to accomplish, so, yeah. Okay, and that's all I have for you. I spoke fast, so I think I made it.
Well, thank you very much. Great questions. Doreen?
Actually, I have some gratitude to share, if that's okay. I love the work that you're doing, and I was really glad earlier in your presentation you mentioned that a lot of times parents and caregivers can experience like social isolation. It's really hard to leave the house when you have littles, let alone when you have littles with high needs disabilities. I recently met a group of parents who all have high needs littles who met through accessing services, and now those parents get together once a month for Dungeons and Dragons. These are all people in their 30s and 40s, yes. But it's honestly basically like a peer support system, thanks to meeting other parents that they would never have otherwise met if it wasn't for convening around having a child with high needs disabilities. And so it's also improving the mental health, albeit very informally, and this is, downstream effects from the work that you're doing, but I wanted to share that this group of parents is from all over Washington County, and I'm like, this is so rad. Like, this is making you, have, I mean, it's social time, you're playing Dungeons and Dragons, and beer may or may not be involved, but it truly, I'm like, this is a peer support opportunity that only came about because all of your children were able to access services in a way that was safe for you to do so. So I just wanted to share that positive feedback. I love what you're doing, and I know the tendrils of impact go far and wide.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that.
Any other questions or comments?
I sure have a comment.
Okay.
Yeah, so yes, to all of that, and it is incredibly powerful work. And I just wanted to point out to the board that earlier tonight, when you passed the consent agenda, you also passed a personnel action report, and Ricky was on that report. She's going to be a director of our early learning services next year. So congratulations to Ricky.
Thank you. I am very excited.
Yes, we are too. Great job.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Welcome again. All right, May 1st reading of policies. Catherine.
Okay, Madam Chair, members of the board, we have several policies for your consideration. We have, let me jump to it. JFCF, hazing, harassment, intimidation, bullying, menacing, cyberbullying, teen dating violence, or domestic violence student. And the main update there is to cross-reference to our staff policy, so that if people inadvertently are looking at the student policy, they know that there is a companion policy if we're dealing with adults. And then most importantly, and you'll start to see this as a trend, the mention of AI in this policy. So that is the main update for that policy. I'm happy to answer questions as we go along. Same thing with GBNA. This is our staff policy. So again, cross-reference to the student policy, and then the addition of the AI reference. Moving on to our AR for public records requests. As you can see by the code, this has not been readopted since 2021. And really our fee schedule has not kept up with our personnel costs to process public records requests. So you'll see that reflected. And then there's an escalator built into that AR so that those costs can keep up with the increase in staff rates. Moving on down to GBN, JBA, sexual harassment. The updates here are to contact information regarding who people need to reach out to should they have any reports of potential sexual harassment. And then those policies, they're dual coded, so one in the student section and one in the adult section. So you'll see the final policy, the companion policy on sexual harassment. Same thing, updates to the contact information primarily, and just a little bit of language cleanup. And that's a wrap on those proposed changes. Happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Questions? I just have a question on the public records request. Did somebody do an analysis of what the going rate is around and did you just compare to school districts, or did you compare to any other public entities like THPRD or something like that?
A combination of both. We're looking at our actual personnel cost averages and then also other policies of districts in our region and our component districts.
And you landed on those prices just simply based on our cost of what our?
So the starting place was looking at our costs, and then, we compared to the other procedures of our component districts and are like, are we in the ballpark? Are we charging exorbitantly higher rates than other places, or are we within that range? And that's where we we landed.
And then do you have any idea, and I know it's going to vary, but do you have any idea in a, let's say in a given month, how many public records requests we get here in?
We do have quite a few, and I think some of them are private companies that want to have access to our staff names and contact information to sell to vendors. And so that's an impetus to the updated fees here, because once we let those organizations know that there's a charge, typically then they don't want to move forward with the request.
So, and that's what I was kind of alluding to, is most people think when you say public records request that you are asking for something that's behind closed, that's something that's not easily to get to. I don't think that they know that a lot of the public records requests are commercial requests that are using them for commercial reasons.
Yes.
And so it discourages when they see that there's, it takes time and effort for us to put that together. So we're just now legitimizing that if you really want this, there is this time and effort. But I just think most people just think public records are just, and don't know that. So,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah, that's really our most common request, is as you describe.
Any other questions? Thank you, Catherine.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, administrative report, superintendent.
Yes, Madam Chair. As you can tell, they're chock full of amazing things happening across the ESD. I did want to reference Lawaru and his team's work to put the Cascade Alliance for Equity Day together at Rock Creek. I went, a lot of people from the ESD were there, a lot of our staff went, even Jordan Ely, our CFO, took his 2 kids out of school from his school district so that they could hear the stories of kids and be a part of that. It was a fantastic day. Just having kids have the agency and the power to speak to others and to teachers and to administrators is just refreshing. It gives you hope for the future. And I just wanted to point out it was a great day, and Lauro and his squad did an amazing job. And I'm happy to answer anything, questions from the board on anything else in these reports.
Any questions for the superintendent on the? Well, appreciate the information and a good congratulations. I know I've been in the past to the cafe, and it is empowering to see students. I'm sorry to have missed this one, but I'm glad that we provide that opportunity to our students, because it just shows it's very important what they learn in school with all their subjects, but we're also preparing these students with their soft skill sets, and these are invaluable. They're planning and being able to present the soft skill sets so thank you for providing that opportunity to our students. All right, action items here. If you do not mind, before we get to I think we'll go directly to the ORTI grant, and then we'll go and bring up Lauro. So if Ryan, if you could come up and talk to us about the OR.
You're in big trouble.
Totally prepared for this.
So for the record, I am a huge proponent and fan of response to intervention. So kudos, truly, Ryan, for all the work you do. And that is not the purpose for me to pull this out. If I pulled the memo back up because if I read this correctly, it says that we have the opportunity to continue housing ORTI for the 25-27 biennium. So given the fact that it is May of 2026, I'm assuming you've been working for this past school year at a value of the grant is $2.889 million, which means roughly 1.9 blah, 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 has been a cash flow on the ESD's part. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I just wanted to say that for the record, that this amazing program for the state. And so Jordan, kudos to you and to Dan for managing our cash flow to deliver these services and then getting paid a year later. So that's my point.
Can I say something to your point?
Sure.
Okay. And Ryan, we're welcome to talk about this as well. Yes, it's very frustrating, and it does put a lot of pressure on the ESD when the procurement process at the state is so slow. As the board knows, we had to play as hardball as I can ever played in my life with ODE around our EIECSC and our RISE programs, because we were going to have to take a short-term loan, pay interest for running a program that is the state's responsibility, which is just insane. And we did get good action with ODE, and those two very large programs are not a problem for us, at least weren't this year. This is a smaller grant, and I'm not trying to minimize, because it does mean that we have to basically keep millions of dollars in reserve to cover the cash flow needs that we have for programs like this. This is exactly, I would say this is 50% of the reason why Tiger Tualatin School District did not want to manage this grant anymore. So ORTII now had been at Tiger Tualatin since 2005 or 6. Yep. And it was sad to see the district let it go. And a very big part of the reason was they could not handle the cash flow expectations of managing millions of dollars. We were the beneficiary of that, and I think the program is more well situated within ESD anyway, but it is a long-standing problem. So I appreciate you pulling it off and putting it on for public record.
And I just want to say, and this is editorializing totally on my part, this is what makes me nervous about having all of this programs available that we are going to now bid on and have to wait on the state to get payment. That's what, they haven't gotten their act together on the stuff that they're already doing, and now we are going to add, so it makes me nervous, even though there's supposedly this pool of money, and when we have grants, the pool of money's there. Why it can't get through the system faster is, but we're going to take on something more that we're going to put in it, it worries me. Past performance is an indicator of future performance. So anyway, with that, is there a motion?
There is. I would like to move to approve the ORTII grant agreement for this time.
I'll second.
All right, it's been properly moved and seconded that we approve the ORTII grant agreement program. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Now we get resolutions. Dr. Lawaru, let's give it to us.
Good. All right. Good evening. I have the pleasure of sharing with you information related to two resolutions. I will start with our Pride Month. You have the information in your board packet, but I'll share the contents of this resolution with you. So whereas Pride Month is a time to recognize, affirm, and celebrate the identities, histories, and contributions of individuals who are two-spirit, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, asexual, pansexual, gender fluid, non-binary, and all people across the spectrum of sexual orientation and gender identity, as well as their allies. And whereas Pride Month has its roots in the 1969 Stonewall Uprising, a pivotal moment in the ongoing movement for LGBTQIA+ civil rights, led by courageous individuals who challenged injustice and advanced a broader vision of dignity and freedom. And whereas despite meaningful advances in rights and visibility, LGBTQIA+ individuals, particularly youth, continue to experience disparities in safety, mental health outcomes, and access to affirming environments in schools and communities. And whereas data continues to show that many LGBTQIA+ students hear biased language in school settings and do not always experience consistent adult intervention, underscoring the importance of educator awareness and action. And whereas public education plays a vital role in shaping inclusive communities by preparing students to engage with empathy, respect, and understanding of diverse identities. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Northwest Regional Education Service District Board of Directors proclaims the month of June 2026 as Pride Month, and be it further resolved that Northwest Regional ESD reaffirms its commitment to fostering safe, inclusive, and affirming learning and working environments for LGBTQIA+ students, staff, and families. And be it further resolved that Northwest Regional ESD encourages staff, educators, and community partners to engage in meaningful learning, reflection, and action that supports equity, belonging, and the well-being of LGBTQIA+ individuals. And be it further resolved that this is not only an observance, but serves as a call to continued learning, intentional practice, and shared responsibility in creating schools and communities where all people are valued and supported.
I am so excited about this as a queer board member, and I would just like to note that at least within Washington County, on the list of organizations and community supports, I'd like to also call out that the Westside Queer Resource Center is doing a really great job, and Beaverton Pride is also a great resource that's based in Washington County, in addition to the great organizations that are listed here.
Thank you. I'll add those to our intranet where we post this and the resources. So
Oh, I'll
thank
send
you
you
for
a
that.
note with some links over email then. Yeah.
Thank you.
Unless anyone else has any other comments, I would be absolutely thrilled to motion that our board approve Resolution 26015 in celebration of Pride Month as presented.
Second.
All right, it's been properly moved and seconded that we adopt resolution 26-015 in honor of Pride Month. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion.
Thank you. I'd also like to share the Juneteenth resolution as well. I'll also read this. Juneteenth, also known as Juneteenth Independence Day, Freedom Day, and Emancipation Day, commemorates June 19, 1865, when Union soldiers arrived in Galveston, Texas, and announced that enslaved African Americans were free more than 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation. And whereas Juneteenth is one of the longest celebrated commemorations of Black freedom in the United States and honors the strength, perseverance, culture, and contributions of African American communities across generations. Whereas Juneteenth is both a celebration and a call to truth-telling, inviting our nation to remember the enduring harms of slavery, segregation, and systemic racism while recognizing the continuing work required to advance justice, equity, and belonging for all. And whereas Oregon's Black communities have long sustained the observance of Juneteenth through education, cultural celebration, and advocacy and community building, helping preserve this history and deepen public understanding across our state. Whereas public education has an essential role in helping students, staff, families, and communities engage with the full history of our nation, including histories of resistance, liberation, and the continuing pursuit of civil rights. And whereas Northwest Regional ESD is committed to fostering inclusive, equitable, and welcoming learning environments, working environments, where the histories, identities, and lived experiences of Black students, staff, families, and community members are acknowledged, affirmed, and respected. And whereas recognizing Juneteenth aligns with Northwest Regional ESD's commitment to educational equity, reflection, belonging, and partnership in service of more just and inclusive schools and communities, therefore be it resolved that the Board of Directors of Northwest Regional Education Service District hereby recognizes and proclaims June 19th, 2026 as Juneteenth Independence Day. And be it further resolved that the board encourages students, educators, staff, families, and community partners throughout the Northwest Regional ESD region to observe Juneteenth through learning, reflection, celebration, and engagement with the history and enduring significance of Black freedom in the United States.
Any comments or questions?
I move to approve Resolution 26-016, Juneteenth Independence Day.
I'll second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we adopt resolution 26-016, Juneteenth Independence Day. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
All right, our last action item tonight is to appoint an at-large board member. And Superintendent, the floor is yours.
Okay.
What are you most excited about for your next 4 years?
Dorian, that's a great question. Thank you. It's not one particular thing. I mean, I thought about this as I completed my application, but about this evening as well. Back to joy. I'm not saying this to ask for your vote. I'm running unopposed. I truly enjoy this board. I mean, I think we're all centered in child success, 0 through graduation, and just kudos to the team. I mean, I'm serious. I mean, I sat here and I reflected on the agenda tonight and accountability, early intervention, RDI, workforce development, cafe summit, STEM hubs, special education, and just the list goes on. And you do it with such energy, innovation, leadership, and it gets me excited about our future for our children. It's just truly a joy to be part of this. So just looking ahead, fighting the good fight is probably, that's what it is. So thank you.
If not, with that, I am honored to move to approve our wonderful board member, Maureen Wolf, as the at-large board member for Northwest Regional ESD.
I will second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we reappoint Maureen Wolf to another term on the Northwest Regional ESD as an at-large member. Is there any discussion? I will just say that I believe how fortunate we are to have someone with the skills and the expertise, but not only in all the years that you've dedicated to education, but also in your capacity in so many other things. You're so involved in the community. Obviously, president of your city council. You bring so many things to this work, and we as an educational service district are very fortunate to have your expertise on this. And so with that, I will be voting in favor of this. So is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving Maureen to a second term signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Congratulations. Welcome.
Thank you all very much.
All right, that is the last of our action items. Are there any board comments? The only thing I wanted to just mention is I read the clips that come out every single day from the Oregon School Board Association about things that are going on around the state that have to do with education. And I am constantly amazed how much, not only in local publications, but especially of how many times the Northwest Regional ESD is published. And it just, again, goes to show how much great work is being done by this district, and that others recognize that and truly are a bellwether. And I am looking forward to being at the ESD conference next week, where I will get to see again the good work that this staff does, and feel very, very proud to be a part of the ESD. So I just wanted to recognize that it does not go unnoticed. So. With that, we will be meeting again on June 10th, and we'll be back home at our ESD office in Hillsborough. So we'll look forward to seeing you all in person if we can for the June meeting on June 10th. But with that, we are adjourned.
Okay, good night, everybody. Safe travels.